Hey,
Hello, Shaun.
hey,
Thank you
Josh.
so much for joining us. Thank you for those really wonderful and innovative meditations. Uh,
Thank you.
I'm sure they've piqued the minds and mindfulness of our audiences and those who will also listen at a later time. Um, maybe we should talk a little bit to start about how you came to this type of meditation, because it's quite different perhaps from
Yeah,
Vipassana meditation for people who studied that, or Zen, or even kind of Tibetan
yeah.
styles. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely much more different than Zen. A lot of those earlier meditations I've learned have been, um, I would say, much more cognitive, much more about becoming calm. Whereas this style of meditation is much more focused on insight. How does one gain insight? And actually, this is in the Tibetan tradition. In the I was introduced to it by His Holiness the Dalai Lama during a Kala Chakra Tantra ceremony. And I was amazed at the way the Tibetans could visualize. Their ability to visualize is remarkable. They can close their eyes and see things in great detail. And, just like many great musicians, it's not just the sense of sight. Great musicians can hear individual notes or compose entire symphonies in their mind's ear, in a sense. So these techniques are here, and they've been around for thousands of years, and they're mainly meditations for artists, how to improve people's artistic abilities and skills rather than just finding calm. And when I discovered these meditations, I thought, wow, this is cool. This is fun. My emotions are engaged. It's hypnotic. Um, and what we try to do in this new set of meditations is try to make it a little bit more fun for the average younger person who's not going to sit really for a Zen or Vipassana, which requires so much discipline. But someone who just wants something fun that's a few minutes and can kind of zone out and explore their mind. And I was hoping to bring it to a younger generation. And I don't. I mean, they're in this. There's a TikTok generation, right? So they're going to need something a
Yeah.
little bit
So
more
they don't have long
engaging.
attention spans, right?
Yeah. So
There's
yours theirs
perhaps
though, not ours.
yeah, or
So
maybe that's a presumption or an assumption that we shouldn't make. There's a sense
yeah,
that due to media cycles, sound bites, that there's some kind of epigenetic reprogramming going on in our
yeah.
cognition. But maybe, in fact, we're underestimating the young
That's true
generation's
too.
ability.
I mean, from my point of view, I found it more interesting, more emotionally engaging, helped me with my storytelling earlier in my life, and I got to a point where I just wanted to teach other people these type of meditations. And with this one, I worked with Alok Mehta. I want to make sure I give a shout out to him. He's the musician. Even though since each of those meditations had a very gentle suggestion of an individual raga. I think the first one used Rag Yaman, I believe, and just very gently in the sense. And what you had there was a teaching from the Nada yoga tradition. So Nada yoga is like a yoga of listening, where you're taught to listen to sounds internally. So those techniques are like, okay, listen to yourself swallow, listen to yourself breathe, listen to your heartbeat, and then the external world as well. And what we did is try to bring together these two schools of Nada yoga into one meditation where you're, going out to space. A little bit like a little homage to David Bowie as well there, right? Like the whole the space oddity type thing. And then, where those two worlds meet is when you say a name, when you say the name of someone, you care for. And that's where these two worlds meet. And it's a very simple thing. We say names all the time, but, in the scope of this meditation, we've taken it and making it, something that's very important. When you say someone's name, it's profound. It can be. So, we wanted to make that's what we did. We made a meditation that was kind of centered around that, but in a way that you would feel gratitude, you'd feel generosity when you say the person's name, right? You're up in space, you're away from everyone, you're sad, you're lonely, you're just by yourself. Only then, when you remember someone you love, they feel like, oh man, I'm, uh, I'm away from them. Maybe I'll never see them again. And
Hmm.
even though they may be in the next room, maybe you go out and you know, maybe you're grateful to your parents for a moment.
So that
Um,
creates the space for this kind of these kinds of insights as you're talking. There's a
yeah,
gentle leading. There's a narrative that unfolds, which for me is a strange thing to encounter in meditation, where so much is about
yeah,
leaving behind the narratives of the mind, freeing yourself from it.
yeah.
But it's clear, though, that uh, there are many ways to cultivate our attention, to
Hmm.
bring ourselves into deeper sensitivity, receptiveness to the aspects of our body, as well as our environment, as well as our emotions and our
Yeah, I mean, the
creativity as
motions are
well.
the big thing. A lot of meditations teach you to just, you know, um, detach from your emotions, quiet your emotions. I think we can recruit our emotions to allow us to gain greater creative insight. And I think meditation can be a fantastic tool to do that. And I think that's where we're really making a sharp um, break from some of the other traditions, saying, "Hey, yeah, let's bring emotion, and let's bring it together." Um,
Yeah, so
and the
maybe you
second,
can say more about what's driving you to produce and create these kinds of meditations. Why
yeah,
are you
well, it's
doing this
part of
work?
a whole app that will be out next early next year. Right now, it's called Attention Quotient, and what it is, it's an app that you can use your watch, your whatever your where's the camera, your Apple Watch. If you have one, it will measure you
I
throughout
use
your
my
day,
hair
let you know
past the
when you're
freckles
anxious.
watch.
I know that'll work too. But this it
I gotta
measures you
get with
throughout your
it.
day, lets you know when you're anxious, and can then give you that meditation when you need it. So it's
Wait,
there's a
so
part of
my
it. It's like
watch will tell
personalized
me
medicine.
when I'm anxious.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can be on a date, be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be on this date, or maybe or maybe you're with your boss, or it will tell you when you're anxious in certain places and times, and will then also then deliver a meditation for you at that moment, and it'll give you kind of a training based on whatever aspect of your attention may be um, in need of a little care. So it starts with a monitor that's in your watch, but then there's like a little bit more detailed test. So you put your finger on a sensor and you close your eyes. It measures your meditation, lets you know what the issue is. Have you not got enough rest? Are you having trouble going inward? Are you anxious? And then we'll give you a specific training um, dealing with that specific part of your attention. So
That's
these
an
meditations
amazing
are
kind of
all,
harvesting
yeah,
of kind of the biophysical data that is
yeah,
coming off of us. What led you to this kind of personalized psychology mission?
really. Well, just it came about naturally, organically. My practice, I was trained also as a clinical psychologist for 10 years, worked in all the major hospitals in New York, and over the years, I've just felt that psychology is broken. Um, the diagnostic manual, I think, is completely bogus, in my opinion. And over time, I just have broken with the general with the way psychology is traditionally practiced right now. Um, and what I wanted to
Maybe you
do
can
is
say
create like a
a little
new,
bit more
yeah.
about what catalyzed that perspective about
You look at
why you
like
pursue.
I was over at NYU Medical Center briefly. I worked at the Child Mind Institute for a few years. I saw a lot of kids with ADHD, and the age at which these children are getting diagnosed is getting younger and younger. They're giving kids medication that are 6, 5 years old, right? These are stimulant medications. And the thing that's the most disturbing is that there is no real test for ADHD, right? The mother can say something, the teacher can say something, and you can diagnose a kid with ADHD and force them to take medication without ever seeing the kid, right? Without taking even their pulse, without even looking at their eyes, without even talking to them. You can give that child a diagnosis. That to me is that's not to me that's not medicine. I just felt
My understanding is
it
also
led
that
to
this
like a
whole kind
moral
of
crisis for me.
diagnostic process is based on a very limited kind of colonialistic data set as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. A lot of like say the DSM, it's a catalog of observations. And if you look down at the
What's that?
history of
The
the
DSM?
DSM is a diagnostic and statistical manual. It's how a psychologist does a diagnosis, and it's based on a table It's updated about once every 10 years, so you really can't determine if there's changes due to epidemics and behavior and stuff like that. And it's mainly American, clients, often in upper, usually white, usually upper middle class, and those are the groups from which the tables are created by which diagnosis is done. One of the things we're doing with our app is instead of updating it once every 10 years, we update it once every 10 seconds, right? And we already have people from 50 countries using it on the watch. We're planning on getting people from every single country in the world, and I want to create a global psychology, right? One that is taking heart rate from people all around the world and bringing together and creating this like new table, you could say, and saying, hey, this is how you determine what's going on. And because it's heart rate, you don't have the problems of language. You don't have, a lot of the psychologies come from the countries on the certain side of colonialism. And I felt that psychology has lost its way. At some point, it became much more about control, where you see things like Facebook and all these other, it became more about behavioral conditioning, controlling first animals than other human beings, as opposed to like liberation of the mind, liberation of the spirit. And that's why I went into it, right? I was inspired by the 60s movements, by Alan Watts, by Leary, by all these experiments, that we all love. And because they're about, how to achieve enlightenment, right? That's the project I'm interested in. And, you have this system right now. It's all about a deficit model. This is what's wrong with you. You know, I don't see the benefit of making someone stare at their own shadow all day, right? Let's focus towards a common goal. And if you need help, you can provide help, but you don't need these diagnostic categories. I mean, in some ways, I felt like the DSM was a record of the West's xenophobia, because every time a new cultural group would come in, a new diagnosis would emerge. And even good people, well-meaning people, will go into the field, and then they get hijacked by this system of, I feel it was biased at best and maybe latently racist in some ways through the categories. So even if you have good intention, you're measuring someone against this table of normative behavior, and if they don't fit it, they're now diagnosed and now can be medicated and so forth, even without their permission if they're a child. So for me, it became like I had a bit of a crisis, and the response to that was to work in my own private work with more and more scientific measurement, measuring the sympathetic nervous system, measuring the parasympathetic nervous system. And I did that for a while in the research setting, but now I felt like let's connect it with psychology, let's connect it with mindfulness, let's create a full system where you got kick-ass diagnostics, but when you're giving interventions, you're not giving medication. We're giving sound, using sound as therapeutic, using meditation as a therapeutic tool, and using them first, and then seeing how, teaching a person to become their own psychologist, right? Your mind
Mhm.
is way too
So
important
rather
to
than a
leave to somebody
reductive
else.
approach that leaves the person helpless and more dependent
Yeah,
in terms of their crisis, it's
exactly.
empowering as well as cultivates the ability to transcend whatever crisis that they may be facing. Gives
Exactly.
tools.
And you need to, yeah, give people tools and let people internalize their own psychologist. Teach people to become their own psychologist. I mean, I think that's the key, right? Just like you internalize good teachers or people in your life that become part of yourself. Why not learn these skills and internalize that so you can treat yourself when you need it? And give you these little technology tools, apps, and classes and meditations, and a way to measure yourself that's um, relatively cheap. Another thing, a lot of these, psychology is very expensive. Psychoanalysis with this assessment, like a neuropsych evaluation, can be $5,000 to $10,000. Trial Mind Institute was charging $10,000 for a stat neuropsych assessment. We want to offer that assessment for $5 a month, right? Plus they charge extra for, right, the therapy and the psychology and CBT and psychoanalysis and all that, where you have techniques from CBT, psychoanalysis, DBT, mindfulness. I mean, we're using all these different techniques, but we're using them when people need it at the right time. So instead of having just a CBT therapist like Noom or whatever, we're just incorporating a lot of these different techniques and providing people what they need when they need it from the appropriate tradition. And
It's really, really
and
wonderful, this
yeah,
work. Where can people find this app? When will it be available?
it'll be available at around our launch date is January 21st. That's what we're expecting. It'll be on the App Store. There is an app already. A Watch app is already out. You can download that now on the Apple Watch on the Apple Store. But this new version will have a monitor that you'll be able to, take your heart rate and so forth right from the camera of the phone. It's something I, helped build, and
And
it will
what's it
give you
called?
again.
I don't think you've actually said it.
Right now, it's called Attention Quotient. So the same way you have like an
Attention.
IQ, like an intelligence quotient, this is like an attention quotient.
An
So the same
AQ.
way, an AQ, that's right. It's called AQ or attention quotient. So, attention I think is way more important than intelligence. I've seen so many intelligent people make bad decisions. I can't tell you. I mean, me included, but I mean, it's like making bad decisions, that is. And when do you apply your intelligence? Even if you're intelligent, do you apply at the right time if you're not paying attention? No, you don't. That's when you get in trouble. So I think the important attention is important. It's very important. And as people come to understand their attention and how it's related to their sleep and their anxiety and their ability to go inwards, their introspection, their awareness and their somatics, their awareness of their body, they'll begin to understand how to, how to heal themselves. And that's the
That's
hope.
true.
It's a whole like complete system that we're presenting.
Yeah. My
I'm
understanding is
excited.
we absolutely become what we give our attention to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
Well,
like
I think
your
we need to leave
karma.
it there.
Okay.
Thank you so
Well,
much
thank
for
you.
joining us, Shaun.
If
And
I can give
thank
one
you.
more shout out, can I give a shout out to Alok Mehta? He was he was the main musician. It's his
Yeah,
music in the back, his sound design. I know he's worked very hard with me. I just want to make sure he gets, the appropriate credit as well.
absolutely. Thank you. And I know there are wonderful
Yeah.
artists and teachers on the
Yeah.
AQ
Jay
app.
Gandhi's on there. Jay Gandhi,
Yeah.
Alexandre Tanus is on there as well. We got a lot of
Hmm.
these guys we have, overlapping groups, and
Yes.
hopefully if there's anyone in listening who wants to join and help out, we're always looking for
And I
help here.
understand we'll be putting some more of the meditations on our SoundMind site,
Yep.
so
There's
people can.
these two will be on there. Plus, there's another one on the Bardo state, which is that area. It's like a Tibetan idea of the area after death, but before your rebirth and the exploration of that. And these are meant for people to use to become, to nurture their creativity, their music, their art. And, it's just another branch of meditation that's traditionally been for artists, but really has not been introduced to the United States yet. So, I'm excited to be a part of that. And, you know,
Excellent. Well,
whatever I
keep
can
up the
do,
good
let me
work.
know. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you, Josh. Nice
absolutely.
to see you
And
again too.
hope to see you soon.
After all
Yeah,
this
so good to
time,
see you. Yeah,
Got to get together.
good to see you, Shaun.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.